Hello and welcome. Very good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for joining us here on Big Story. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. Big breaking news coming in here on Mirna on this edition of Big Story on the announcements made by the Finance Minister. Let's bring that up first. Finance Minister has announced another stimulus package to aid economic revival amid the pandemic. Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgaar Yojana is aimed at incentivizing creation of employment opportunities during COVID-19 recovery phase. Beneficiaries under this new scheme will include new employees on monthly wages less than 15,000, employee and employer contribution of 12% each to be borne by the government for the next 2 years. This is aimed at easing the financial burden on companies for creating jobs. That's the big announcement, the big takeaway from the press briefing earlier today made by Union Finance Minister. Let's listen in.
The new scheme, which we are now calling as Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgaar Yojana, is being launched so that we incentivize creation of new employment opportunities so that the recovery phase benefits from it. What does this mean? It means that every EPFO registered establishment, those registered establishment, if they take new employees who never were covered by EPFO earlier, if they take them on, or if they bring in employees who had lost their jobs between 1st March 2020 and 30th September 2020, even they will be counted as new employees, although they may have an EPFO number earlier. Both will benefit from this.
My colleague Avni Raja joining me now to help us understand the important and the significant measures announced by the Union Finance Minister. Avni, like we've been saying here on Mirror Now, that this entire effort is to incentivize employment generation. If you can throw some light on the point made about the Provident Fund and the employee benefits which the government is now willing to bear the burden of in order to encourage companies to create job opportunities. Over to you.
Well, that's right, Afrida. This has been an exhaustive set of announcements that has come in. This is the third set of announcements that the Finance Minister has made ever since the pandemic hit. And this is 12 different announcements which cover a broad range from agriculture to, ensuring that jobs are created or incentivizing jobs creation to help for or support for stressed sectors as well. Let me just take you through some of these announcements which are also important here. First of all, like you pointed out, there was the incentive to boost job creation. So this is, of course, where the centre is going to bear the PF amount for new employees. This applies to new employees as well as those who have lost their jobs during the pandemic. Of course, there are certain eligibility criteria. For example, firms with up to 1,000 employees and those with salaries of less than 15,000 rupees are the ones who will be eligible. And the scheme is effective for the next 2 years. The other important announcement has come in with respect to support for stressed sectors. So we're talking about 26 stressed sectors here who have been impacted by the pandemic and the lockdown, credit support for them. So the emergency credit guarantee scheme has been extended here till the 31st of March 2021. So entities with credit outstanding between 50 and 500 crore will be benefited from this scheme. So additional credit will be, the tenure for that will be 5 years, and this will include 1 year moratorium also for these specific sectors on the principal repayment. Aside from that, there are also production-linked incentives for manufacturers, which has been announced. Urban housing scheme, there has been a lot of focus as far as housing schemes are concerned, and also the real estate sector per se. Support for construction and infrastructure announced. 6,000 crore in the National Investment and Infra Fund will also be infused. Income tax relief for home buyers and developers. So again, this is subject to certain terms and conditions. that this income tax relief will be granted. Also for farmers, 65,000 crore of fertilizer subsidy. The Garib Kalyan Rozgaar Yojana, an additional 10,000 crore has also been announced. That will be infused. There's also some other measures to boost exports as well as capital and industrial expenditure. And finally, a 900 crore infusion for research and development grant for the COVID vaccine development. So this is the third set of announcements that has come in. This was, of course, talked about even earlier, and it was expected before Diwali, and that has happened at this point, Afrida.
All right, Avni, stay with us. I'm going to go across now to Mr. Santosh Mehrotra, economist, joining me on the phone line. Good afternoon, Mr. Mehrotra. You heard my colleague there giving us the details of the Rozgaar Yojana. We'll just go into that for a bit. But before that, I want to ask you that the big announcement that the finance minister says, expressing a lot of optimism about the economy coming back to positive growth in Q3 of 2020-2021. How would you react to the important projections that have been made by the finance minister today with regards to the Indian economy?
So let's just recall precisely what RBI has said. The RBI has again reiterated that there will be a contraction in this quarter also, in the quarter from July, August, September. Point one. Point two, what did Moody say? Moody said that they expected that it would be a decline of 9.6. It's down to 8.9. These are all still projections. Bottom line, even in 2021, Moody's is saying that they are expecting a growth of 8.6% as opposed to 8.1%, half a percentage point increase. Now, suppose the economy actually contracts by 9.5% to 10%, which is what the RBI is expecting and the government itself is saying. Then suppose Moody's projection for 2021 comes out right, that it improves by 8.6% in 2021. We are still not back to the 2019-20 GDP level in FY in 21. In other words, 21-22, which means that what I've been saying from the beginning is that the earliest we might get back to 19-20 income levels of our country might be 22-23. This has been confirmed. So this is what I would like to say. Having said that, on the stimulus, I'm quite pleased that this kind of stimulus announcements have been made. Finally, देर आए दुरुस्त आए, Urdu में कहावत है. Unfortunately, this has come rather late. It should have come about 4 or 5 months back for the following reason, that fiscal stimuli were what was needed because demand had collapsed. When money is put into the hands of people in the economy, then people begin to spend and then demand revives. And then you might have got a lesser of a contraction, a lesser of a recession than you are seeing. So that's why I'm saying the real point was never understood, that people are saying, oh, how could you put in place a fiscal stimulus when there's a lockdown? Who was saying that you put in place a fiscal stimulus when there was a lockdown? But you've been in unlock now for 4.5 months, since the beginning of July. July, August, September, October is already gone. Therefore, it always takes 3 or 4 months for money, when you commit it, to actually get released, for spending to happen, because that's how slow the system is. Anyway, good news is that fiscal stimulus is being put in place. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see what the size of the fiscal stimulus is, because that information came in the very last slide, and I lost connection at that point.
Professor Mehrotra, thank you so much for joining us. This is Avni Raja here, this side. Like you pointed out that this has, it's slightly come in a little later than would have been ideal, but it has come in nonetheless. But I want to speak to you on this other factor that you also pointed out too with respect to the demand side. That it has been we've been unlocking for the last few months, demand really not picking up the way it should, and also correlate the stimulus package that has been announced today with the fact that we've also seen the Reserve Bank of India say that there has been a massive spike in household savings at this point in time. But that has come due to a fear of uncertainty. And, of course, it is always good to see a rise in household savings. But the reason behind it is the fear of uncertainty. How would you correlate that to the measures announced today and the fact that whether or not the demand side has been, addressed in this particular stimulus package?
Of course, there is uncertainty. Why? Because we don't have a public health system, and the government is still not pumping money into the public health system. If people are worried that they were to contract COVID and they have to go to a private hospital, the private hospitals are currently making money hand over fist. They are making money hand over fist. I want to repeat that. And the government seems to have very little control over them. I want your viewers to know that the regulation of the private sector, which should have strengthened by the government, that simply not visible. So the point is, that's why people are not spending. They are continuing to save. Yes, I'm pleased about the fact that they are saving, but they are saving against a rainy day. So, the point is, even if they are saving now, you have to remember that savings as a proportion of GDP has been systematically decreasing. After 2013, it fell from 24%, household savings fell from 24% of GDP to 17% of GDP by 2018. A 7 percentage point decline. So if people's incomes are falling today, then if they are saving, why are you surprised? Of course they are bound to save, because they are, they are not going to spend. That means demand is not going to rise. That means you needed to put in place a big.
Right. Okay. So clearly, while it may at one level seem that there is a lot of focus and thrust on various aspects of the economy to actually see a boost in the growth, etc., economists like Mr. Santosh Mehrotra still saying that a lot remains to be done and many other aspects still remain to be addressed in order to boost critical things like the demand, for instance, which will enhance expenditure in turn. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Mehrotra, this afternoon with your important and enlightening perspectives on the announcements made by the Finance Ministry. Let's bring up more breaking news coming in at this hour. The Delhi High Court has vacated the stay order on COVID bed reservation. In its observation, the High Court said, in view of the present situation in Delhi, the spiraling cases and the ground reality, which is different from how it was when the stay order was passed, the stay order on reservation is vacated. This is the big development we are tracking at this hour. Delhi High Court has vacated the stay order on COVID bed reservation. Meenakshi on the phone line. Yes, Meenakshi.
Well, that's right, Afrida. This will come as a reprieve for the Delhi government because this is the Delhi High Court division bench which is vacating the earlier single-judge bench order which had gone ahead and stayed the Delhi government's decision to reserve 80% of beds because the judge found that time that it would be inhuman to deny a serious non-COVID-19 patient ICU facilities even when a large number of COVID-reserved ICU beds were lying vacant. The Delhi government, our viewers will recall, had urged for the Supreme Court to intervene in this issue yesterday, and the Supreme Court, while declining to intervene, what it had done was it had preponed the hearing in the High Court. The High Court had slated the matter for hearing next on the 27th of November. So it was preponed to be heard today, which is the 12th of November. And upon consideration of various aspects that have been presented to the High Court by the Delhi government, the High Court, the division bench composition of the High Court has gone ahead and vacated this earlier stay, which was imposed by a single judge bench order.
Okay, thanks for that update, Meenakshi. Let's talk about the High Court now pulling up the Delhi government for not doing enough in order to address issues of pollution and COVID cases. Even as cases spiral, Delhi High Court has come down heavily on the Kejriwal government for the second straight day in a row, slamming the government for not playing a role in actually addressing the situation, and says that it cannot play with the lives of the people in this manner. The High Court observed the Delhi government has to be more alive to the situation. The court also quizzed the state government for only listing 33 private hospitals for COVID bed reservation. The court was hearing Delhi government's petition on reserving 80% of ICU beds in private hospitals. Tanima now joins me to take us through the important features of the High Court observation on Delhi government. Tanima?
That's right. In fact, almost on a daily basis, we are seeing that there are important observations coming in from the High Court with regard to COVID situation in the national capital. We just broke that information about the fact that the High Court has in fact vacated its earlier order staying, in fact lifting the stay on the beds reservation in the national capital given the current situation. But also what we have seen is there have been stronger observations which have come from the High Court while they were hearing this petition from the Delhi government with regard to lifting the earlier stay on bed reservation with regard to COVID. What are some of the scathing comments which have been made by the Delhi High Court? It says, without pulling any punches, the High Court has said the Delhi government can't be allowed to play with the lives of citizens, considering what is happening in Delhi. Yesterday, we saw over 8,500 new cases had in fact been reported, around 85 deaths in a single day from Delhi. This is an alarming situation which the High Court has in fact commented on. If we go into the next point, saying that there's a complete change in circumstances in Delhi, essentially saying that there are certain things which the Delhi government has done in terms of relaxing curbs in the national capital, but given the fact that the number of COVID cases which are rising and the pace at which it is rising in the national capital, it is a cause of concern whether or not this is the right time for relaxing those curbs, considering that the circumstances have changed. Going to the next point there, where the High Court has said that the Delhi government has to be much more alive to the current situation, basically saying that the response has to match what's happening on ground. Following point, where we can also see that the questions have in fact been raised. Now, of course, that the earlier order on the bed reservation has in fact, the stay on that has been lifted. But nonetheless, High Court posed tough questions asking why is it that the Delhi government had only selected 33 private hospitals in which to reserve beds? Why is it that the ambit has not been increased further? So these are some of the strong points which have been made by the Delhi High Court with regard to the Delhi government, essentially pointing out that not enough is being done, or some of the measures that the Delhi government had taken so far seems to be outdated when it comes to tackling the COVID situation in Delhi.
Okay, Tanima, stay with us. There's another very important report that is out today, and that is the Delhi's Sero Survey report. Now, this report indicates the prevalence and the penetration of the infection in the city. The results of the fourth Sero Survey is out, which shows that 1 out of every 4 people in Delhi is infected. Of course, this was a test done on a limited sample of people. It was conducted on 15,000 people within a period of first week of September and the last week of November. And what was found is 1/4 of the people tested were infected. And if you extend that to the entire population, it would mean 1 in every 4 Delhiites is currently COVID positive. It revealed that prevalence of antibodies has gone up by only 0.4% in the last 45 days. This, according to the study, is majorly due to fewer cases reported and disappearing antibodies. So, Tanima, on this as well, before I go to you, another point that that we have to make here is that the Delhi High Court has slammed the Delhi government after looking at this particular result and the figures that have come out of this. High Court has asked why the state government has relaxed the norms for public movement and transport at a time when no household across the national capital literally was left untouched by COVID. So, Tanima, on this point as well, we know that malls, markets are being thronged in the national capital. Cinema halls are open much before Mumbai, and public transport is running to full capacity. This is almost as if business as usual. Now, here are some important pointers that we have from the Sero survey that indicates that things are anything but normal when it comes to COVID. In fact, the numbers are very much on the rise.
First, take a look at what the Sero survey, the fourth Sero survey. In fact, probably Delhi is the only city which has done so many rounds of Sero surveys. So the fourth Sero survey of Delhi has in fact shown, as you said, that 1 out of 4 people have in fact got COVID, have been exposed to COVID as far as their survey is concerned. 43.5% people earlier diagnosed with COVID remained negative. So that is of course a good news. Proportion of people with antibodies largely unchanged. Again, this statistics is also unchanged, which means the situation has not improved. Prevalence of antibodies has gone up by only 0.4% in 45 days. Again, in a way signifying that situation still remains the same. Antibodies remain detectable only for a limited period of time. So this is an important point being made about disappearing antibodies. And also the Sero survey actually, you will see in the following points, raises questions about whether or not the antibodies are in any way helpful or effective in terms of curbing the spread, whether it builds immunity, whether or not there could be recurring cases in the same patients or not. So those are certain things which the Sero survey actually points out, that there is not enough conclusive evidence to show whether or people are protected because of the antibodies, or the lack of antibodies in some samples that they found means that they are unprotected. So this is something which the Sero survey actually points out, essentially saying that these are things which need to be found out later. But as you were mentioning, that what's also important is the fact that the High Court has made very strong observations with regard to looking at the report on the fourth Sero survey. We look at the fact that the High Court has again questioned why have the norms been relaxed by Delhi government when there is such a critical situation in the city. In fact, it goes on to say that other states have not done so. Other cities, other big metro cities have not really opened up or relaxed their norms as much as what they have seen observed happening in the national capital. If we look at the other points also which the High Court has asked, similarly, as I said, that other states have not relaxed as much. If we go into the following point, it also talks about how a lot more needs to be done with regard to what the Delhi government is doing, that the corrective steps are needed to curb the spiraling number of cases. Remember that these observations came yesterday, a day when Delhi actually saw the highest single day spike of over 8,500 cases. And also the High Court goes on to say that more measures need to be taken. No household has been untouched by COVID, and that is something which the High Court should, in fact, the Delhi government rather should be focusing on when it comes to actually preparing a strategy in order to, in some way or the other, tackle the rising number of cases that we can see.
Absolutely. So more remedial measures, more corrective steps, as the High Court says, need to be taken in Delhi. We'll have to see whether a lockdown is being considered again. Thanks, Tanima, for joining us with the important points on the various aspects of the High Court's observations. Well, with that, it's time for us to take a short break. News and updates continue on the other side. Do stay with us. Also visit us on mirrornownews.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. Thanks for watching.